Hello and welcome everyone to today's edition of Playwire Live, where we're going to talk about how to build an engaging and customized experience for your user base. As something that most publishers and content creators are wildly passionate about is probably even an understatement. We decided we'd bring someone who gets to live and breathe this every single day. We have Jordan from GTPlanet. I'll introduce him and his site here in a second, as well as Ashleigh, who is on our partner success team. And so what we wanted to do today was talk a little bit about the intersection of the decisions that come into play to create an amazing user experience between how your site is structured, the content that you create, and how ads interact with that experience, because it's a big part of it. It can definitely make or break your relationship with your users. So first and foremost, I want to hand it over to Jordan to give a brief background on GTPlanet and his very passionate community of fans.
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you for having me. It's great to be with you guys, and I always love an opportunity to talk about my website and online communities and online content. It's a lot of things that I'm very passionate about. I started GTPlanet actually all the way back in 2001. Which the internet was a very, very different place back then. But I was really passionate about racing games and cars and that sort of thing. And I decided to build this website about Gran Turismo. The Gran Turismo 2 was out at the time. And I thought maybe there needs to be sort of a resource where people who are interested in the game can come and communicate with one another and find out more information about the games. And it sort of took off from there. And I really loved all the aspects of running the site, and it just grew over the years. And then I started to monetize it and studied computer science in college. And I was able to invest more and more into the site, and it's continued to grow. And now we have a site that's 23, coming up on 23 years old here. And it's amazing. It's grown into a huge online community, and we have a lot of content, articles, that sort of thing. And yeah, I'm very fortunate to have this as a job. I feel like I've never worked a day in my life because I love it so much.
That's awesome. You started when you were 14, right? Isn't that
14?
14 that this is where you'd end up?
No, I certainly did not. And my mother actually bought the domain name GTPlanet.net for me for my 14th birthday. I had been tinkering with these little free website builders and that sort of thing, and she bought this for me. And I thought, well, I need to figure out how this actually works and how websites actually work. And I never ever imagined that it would get to the point where it is today, or much less go on this long. But here we are.
And now it's taken on a life of its own.
Exactly. Yeah. I've definitely learned things the hard way.
Well, I'm so excited to have you here. And then Ashleigh, if you just take a quick second, introduce yourself and your role here at Playwire, and then we'll dig into some deep and meaty questions.
Sure, yeah. Thanks for having me as well. I'm the Director of Partner Success Operations at Playwire. So I oversee the onboarding process for all of our new publishers coming onto the platform. And that's when we onboard publishers, get them up and running with ad units on their website, and help design an ad unit layout. So we work with a lot of publishers, see a lot of different websites, and really help publishers to customize the layout that works.
And we're going to date ourselves. I figured, Jordan, you already dated yourself with your your website and how old it is. So Ashleigh and I go back about 1 million years as well. So we've kind of come up through different industries together, used to run web teams in the agency world. So website design, development, structure, conversion optimization, technical SEO, content creation are all things that we've done in our past. And so it's a really fun collision of bright minds and exciting things that we all love to talk about. So with that, we're going to dig into some of our key questions. And Jordan, I want to kick it off for you because we're really here to talk about, the publisher's journey, the publisher side. So, could you tell me, one or two key pieces of advice you'd give a publisher as they're really like running out of the gate, trying to marry this concept of like user experience and ad and revenue generation and, all of the many priorities that go into your life.
Yeah, I think the first and most important thing to keep in mind, especially if you're starting out on a journey like this, is it's going to be a long road and you need to be persistent and don't give up when it gets hard or it feels like it's not working. Because I mean, like I said, it's been over 2 decades for me to get to this point where I am now, and it won't take you that long, I don't think. But the site, it took a few years before it really started to get traction. And I think a lot of people, when they start out, they think, oh, it's going to be easy, or they look at other people who have had success doing this, and they think, oh, well, I'm going to be able to do that. And it's really common nowadays when you have influencers on all types of platforms, be it YouTube or Instagram or whatever. People see someone who's put in a lot of the work and they think, oh, I just need to do that, and then I'm going to find that type of success. And the reality is, it's going to take a lot of work. And what you ultimately have to do is focus on the fundamentals. That's another thing that I've really tried to keep in the top of my mind. And that comes down to really making sure that your content is timely, making sure that it's well written, and that you are executing on all the basics, like a fast website, a website that's easy to read, and one that truly does connect with your audience. And really, that's really all there is to it. If you're not executing on those basic fundamentals, then all of these other things and software and template layouts and social media strategies, they aren't really going to matter if you don't have something that people truly want to connect with and truly want to consume.
That's so true. I mean, the backbone of any strategy is the content. This used to be something we'd talk about frequently when we were doing web design. It's great if your site looks beautiful, and it's definitely important from a branding perspective, but it's the secondary to, like, do you have a reason to bring somebody here in the first place? And so it really does all really come back to the content. And so I wanted to really start from that backbone. Are there, specific considerations that you'd suggest for publishers when they're building a content strategy, or even like things that you might not think about as content, but are supplemental to content, like schema and the technical backend that you use to present that content that you give to publishers?
Yeah, I think one of the important things is that with GTPlanet, at least, we cover sim racing and Gran Turismo. The Gran Turismo brand and franchise, of course, is the main draw for our audience. But I'd like to think that we're telling a story that's going on in this industry or in this niche that people will want to come back and find out what the next chapter of that story actually is. And I think good storytelling is at the is a fundamental element of all good content. And that's sort of a continuous thread that it's important to include that in all of your writing. And we try to do that as much as we can at GTPlanet. So we'll reference things that happened in the past to give a bit of context to the news of the day so that our readers can understand. And hopefully in the back of their mind, they'll say, well, I need to come to GTPlanet to read and see what the next chapter of this story is going to be. And so that's an important element when you're creating content, I think, to have that continuity. And then, as you said, it really kind of goes back to the fundamentals, but you do have to have a strong technical foundation. And you mentioned schema. That's something that I've tried to really work on from a technical SEO perspective, and if you don't know what that is, it's basically in the source code of the web pages. You have formally structured data that will show, like, who the author of the article is, the name of the publication, and then the actual raw text of the article itself. And that type of thing helps search engines because they see that format and they understand that format. So they know, what is this page actually about? And that's really important. Having a really fast website's important. And that's maybe a whole nother episode. I could talk about that for a long time. But yeah, like I said, I'm big on fundamentals, and I think having a very fast website, basic SEO practices are what you really need to focus on. And they're important. They're very important.
I love it. It's content that keeps people coming back. And it's, the technical foundation to make sure it's easy to be found. Like if you're really breaking it down to the very, very basics. And so now, like once you have that great content and you have those fundamentals in place, you can start to really think about, how do I lay it out for, the easiest consumption, and how do I layer in ads? So, I mean, Ashleigh, with your history as a designer, and then now as, ad layouts and everything else that you do here at Playwire, are there any major recommendations you throw out there regarding layout and structure?
Yeah, I think really it's to understand your audience. So what will your audience be doing? How will they interact with the page, and then structuring around that. So for example, if they're reading an article with a recipe in it, where will they spend more time? Probably in the recipe section, leaving some space there where you could have an ad placement that would be on the page while your user is using the recipe, and just making sure that your page is laid out with whatever the end intention is. If it's to cook the meal or to click the link, making sure that you direct the user to that area. So along the sides of the page, you want to have some ad space there, or throughout the article, but making sure you keep your user in mind for that UX aspect of it, but also some space for monetization throughout the page.
I mean, I think that's actually a great point, is really digging in and thinking about the use case of each page. And Jordan, I think like you're a great example of this with your site, because you have two very distinct experiences that live in your site. There's content consumption. You have great guides with just tons of information, where the experience is I'm reading from start to finish, or I might be jumping around to different sections. And then you have like the opposite experience in a forum, right? You have a full community where people are exchanging ideas and information back and forth. How do you kind of think about the different experiences in those areas of your site as it relates to just layout in general, and how you marry ads into that layout?
Yeah, it's a good question. And I think GTPlanet maybe is not unique. There's certainly plenty of websites which do what we do, but it is more than just articles and that sort of thing. So we do have, I feel like on GTPlanet, we do have two sort of unique types of users. We have users that are visiting the site maybe from Google News or from search results, and they're going to hit our articles, and hopefully we can attract them into our forums, into our community, where they can really get engaged with other people. And then our community, on the other hand, is those people who have already been engaged, and they are the ones coming back to talk with each other and share their thoughts and opinions on the news of the day. And so for GTPlanet, that gives us two sort of really solid foundations to build upon. And I think that's important. I've seen websites that are just forums, and they kind of struggle to survive, and websites which are just articles, and they kind of struggle to survive as well. But it does create a lot of extra work in terms of thinking about ad formats and layouts and where you want to promote different types of content. And that's something I've tried to work on quite a bit, actually, because for me, it is about converting those users who come to read our articles, converting them into active community participants, because that's what's really going to help the site over the long term, and keep building that community up and keep engaging people from that. But also another thing that we do is we do show fewer ads to our logged in community members. And I think that's really important, because I want them to engage. I want them to have a really, really, really good experience, because they are building up that community. They are a big part of what makes GTPlanet so great. And so I think they need to have a lighter ad load, and versus someone who maybe just clicks on an article, they're probably not going to stick around. I mean, statistically, that's just how it is. And so, they're just there to get the information, and maybe, we can help fund the site by showing them a few more ads. But I think that's something that you have to keep in mind. And each page, each template on the site that you're working on, you have to think about who is going to be visiting this page. What are they going to be doing? What types of goals and objectives do they have while they're here? And it's not going to be the same on every type of page.
No, it's not. And it's really, It's an art as much as it is a science. I mean, this is, it's something, my background is in marketing as well. And so like thinking through, how do you build an experience for each individual user and what are they there to do? What are they thinking about is so much of the conversation. There's data and all of that, which we'll get to as well. But it does have to start from that foundation of like just understanding human behavior, I think is such a valuable step. And I think that's where I struggle when, you see cookie cutter experiences that are the same for every site and every use case. And this idea that just one cookie cutter setup is going to work for every single use case it's just not.
No, it's really not. And I've seen that a lot. That's I build the site templates on GTPlanet myself. They're fully custom. I'm a full stack developer, and I'm really glad that I'm able to do that, because when I look at the site and I think about the different types of articles that we publish, and I think, well, I need to be able to show certain types of articles to different types of people, because we have, say, for example, we have our Gran Turismo coverage, but then we also have Forza game coverage. And that's a kind of a different audience, because you're looking at one game that's mainly on PlayStation versus this game, Forza, which is on Xbox and PC. And then we have other games that we cover, which are exclusively on PC. So, someone who reads an article about one of those games may not necessarily be interested in reading about another. So I've gone in and built, customized recommendations at the bottom of our articles to show people more articles about those other games or related games, which may be on those same platforms. And that's something that, nobody would ever really notice that, but hopefully it entices them to stick around a bit longer and participate more in that community, like I said before.
So true. And I mean, I could nerd out on this all day long, so I'll just indulge a tiny bit more. I would imagine, like, listening to those different use cases, you actually probably have a very different breakup of mobile versus desktop traffic for those different game types. If you're on a PC game, I bet it's like all desktop traffic. But if you're on a PlayStation game, you're probably visiting from your phone, or potentially more likely to. So then there's a completely different layout experience that you have to think about between devices. So, oh my gosh, you could go way deep with that. We won't go down that road today. But really what I want to look at next or think through next is we've talked about a lot of the core concepts that need to be in your mind, but now how do we turn that into data? What are data points that we can look at? Because trying to find that balance, especially if you are monetizing with ads, between user experience and ad revenue is really important. How do we make sure we're maximizing both cases? So Ashleigh, what are some of the strategies that you use when you're working through that kind of question with publishers?
Yeah, so we'll, from Google Analytics, most commonly is used, and most commonly websites, we review websites with Google Analytics. So if you don't have Google Analytics, there are other platforms that monitor performance. But I would say overall, like, we look at page views, the views per user, engagement time. So when you're first starting and really trying to figure out where's the best place to optimize ads, we'll start with looking at the pages that get the most traffic. What pages are the most popular? And also checking out engagement time, because although a listing page may be visited frequently, they'll most likely, your users will jump off and go to that article or that one section of your site that has the meat of the content that they're looking for. And that's where they're going to be the most engaged. So we'll start there and then start to build out the ad layout design for the publisher from that data, to really get a good kind of capture the most engaged audience that we can in the beginning. And then we start to optimize from there.
Perfect. And then Jordan, from your perspective, what are the data points you look at to make sure, like, I heard so many concerns at the beginning of like, let's not overload with ads so that we can convert them into a community member, or let's get a little bit more out of them if we know they're not going to become one. What are some of the metrics and data points that you look at when you're making these decisions?
Yeah, for me, bounce rate is obviously extremely important on these pages. So on my articles, for example, if I add maybe too many ads, I'm going to watch to see what that bounce rate and time spent on page looks like. And then maybe we take some out. How did that affect the numbers. And then also, bounce rate, of course, for anybody who doesn't know, that's the percentage of people who only view that one page and then go back out. They effectively have bounced off the site. So you want that number lower, because that means people are finding content on your site engaging and interesting enough to click through to another page, which is what you ultimately want the user to do. So that's really important. The other thing that I would add to about the analytics is that it's important to segment your traffic as best you can and use some of the tools available in things like Google Analytics to the best of your ability. And so one thing that we do is we actually look at our categories of news and our categories of our forums. So I'm actually able to go in there and see, oh, okay, when we do talk about Forza or Assetto Corsa or Gran Turismo, how do these stories overall, how do they contribute to our visitor numbers? Where are these types of users coming from? And, to give you an example, we cover Forza. There's a big rivalry between Forza fans and Gran Turismo. Obviously, it's like Coke and Pepsi in a way, but, sometimes we'll publish a Forza story and we'll see something on social media. People say, why are you covering this? Why are you covering this? It's, the diehard fans. And I get it. People have their favorites, and that's totally understandable. But the answer is because people want to see it. And so they'll publish those articles, and those readers will come from Google News or from Google search results. They have a desire for that content. And the only way to really understand that or even be aware of that is by looking at the analytics and segmenting this traffic into different buckets and then seeing where those users come from.
So true. Oh, it's fascinating. It's to be able to marry some of the information you can get on analytics. It's like, how do I drive traffic? How do I bring the eyeballs to the site? And then how do we look at monetizing those eyeballs once they're on the site? And I think really an interesting concept about testing that is, I think, occasionally glossed over is, and I heard you mention you do some before and after testing, right? If we add more ads, how does that change the bounce rate? So there's two separate testing concepts you can kind of think through here, where one of them is like an A/B test, where we take and segment traffic into two categories and we give them two experiences and see what happens. And then there's the idea of a before and after test. There are so many metrics that sometimes you don't understand the full effect they'll have. And a great example of this is like viewability on the ad side, unless you fully commit to getting the entire site level at a certain place so that the resulting, members up the chain see it as high quality. So it's just really interesting, and it's important to understand like when you have to go one way or the other to actually truly understand the data that's in front of you. So it can be a complex animal.
Yes, it is.
And really, I want to ask you, Jordan, what keeps you using a monetization provider to support with ad revenue? I mean, in and out, you're a full stack developer, you are very hands-on. And so, for you, what's the benefit of a monetization provider rather than using a DIY solution where you're jumping in and doing some of the heavy lifting yourself?
Yeah, well, yeah, and I've done that before. I've done that, and it's really difficult. And I am a full stack developer. I am managing. I'm helping to manage the content that we're publishing. I'm managing I can be writing an article about a video game one minute, then I'm updating our server software the next, and then I'm dealing with maybe a moderation issue in our forums after that. So there is a lot going on, and I have to wear a lot of hats at once. And the monetization aspect, of course, which is what allows me to even do all this in the first place and actually keep the lights on at GTPlanet, that's a really important piece of the puzzle. And it is so complex, as you just said. I can't do it all. And so having a monetization partner who is an expert in this field is extremely, extremely important. And when you're trying to price your own ads, which I've done before in the past, and companies would come to me and they say, oh, we'd like to buy ads and stuff. And I always say, well, that's sort of a project on its own, because I know what I would like the ad inventory to be worth. I know what I would like to charge them, but is that maybe realistic? Is it too low? Is it too high? I don't really know, because as a publisher, I only have insight into my own traffic and my own numbers and my own metrics. I don't know what what the advertiser may be getting from different people that they're getting quotes from. And also, as big as GTPlanet is, it's only have so much scale to offer them. So you have to get it just exactly right if you want to hook a direct buy from an advertiser. And it's a lot of work. And that's, again, where a partner with expertise in that, they have a picture into all of the websites in their network and the industry at large. And they're going to be able to give that potential partner, potential advertiser, a lot more relevant data and actually give them a quote that's they're more likely to find attractive.
Yeah, the scale comes into play a lot with that too, right? Advertisers are trying to get, millions and billions of impressions at a given time. And so being able to sell a group of sites makes that a lot more of an attractive proposition for sure. Well, we're coming up on time here, and I always love to leave these with, like, if you could take one thing away from our conversation today, what would it be? So I'm just going to ask each one of you to give like one key takeaway. If a publisher walks away with nothing else from today's conversation, Ashleigh, what would you want them to walk away with?
Yeah, I think that this was Jordan, you did an amazing job explaining GTPlanet and everything that happens, all the background. And I think it's a really good takeaway to understand that every website is different, your audience is different, and to really work on, as a creator, work on gearing your website to your audience and making sure you're navigating them in the correct way, and to give them the most out of what you're trying to share. So I think that was a really great learning experience today. Thank you.
Yeah. Jordan, what about you?
Yeah, I think my one piece of advice would be to, in everything that you do, always think about your user and try to have a lot of empathy. Put yourself in their shoes and say, well, if I'm visiting this site about whatever topic, say movies or racing games or whatever, think, what would I really want to get out of this? And ultimately, that is what is really going to give you the most success. Because if you can't empathize with people and you can't really think about their true needs, then you're just sort of going through the motions, and you can forget about what is actually most important. And ultimately, filling these needs of your users is what your job as a publisher is. So always try to keep them first. Focus on the fundamentals. That's of course the thing that I sort of opened this conversation with, but that's part of it. And just always try to think of others in this, and what you would like to see if you were in their shoes and looking for that type of content.
Yeah. Yep. There's no shortcuts, and know your business. I love it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you all for joining us today. We have lives once every 2 weeks, so feel free to join us for our next one. If you ever have any questions or would like us to answer something specific with one of these conversations, don't hesitate to reach out to us, and we'd be happy to take your requests. Thanks, everybody.